welcome to the Star Wars Outlaws tonight. You guys excited? How's that trailer? I'm Vicencio from Ubisoft News, and I'm very excited to be here to talk about one of Ubisoft's most anticipated games, Star Wars Outlaws. As a Star Wars fan, I've dreamed of traveling the galaxy and living the life of an outlaw. And in Star Wars Outlaws, we're introducing the first ever open-world Star Wars game set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Star Wars Outlaws takes place following the Battle of Hoth, at a time when the Empire is tightening its grip and the criminal underworld thrives amidst the chaos. This civil unrest sets players up to experience the ultimate scoundrel fantasy. And to learn more, we have a panel of special guests. Please give a warm welcome to creative director Julian Gerighty. Senior creative executive of franchise story and content at Lucasfilm, Matt Martin. And last but not least, narrative director Navid Khavari. Welcome to Comic-Con, guys.
Thank you.
Just talking about So let's jump right in. Tell us how Star Wars Outlaws came to life and what you mean when you say scoundrel fantasy. Julian?
So, Star Wars Outlaws came to life as a project called Helix a few years ago. And the seed that starts everything is, what is the gameplay experience? What is the emotional experience that we want the player to live through? And for us, we wanted the player to be able to do many, many things. Not just fight, shoot, fisticuffs, torque, fly a ship, drive a speeder. We wanted everything to be in this one experience. And when we went to Lucasfilm, when we pitched this idea, they were like, okay, there's one archetype that really fits this, which is the scoundrel archetype. And let me tell you, working in a French company like Ubisoft, scoundrel is not a concept that the French understand as that word. It's a little bit old-timey. So as soon as we called it Outlaw, everything connected.
All right, Matt, let's talk about the time period for this game. So why is this the perfect time?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you said, it's between Empire and Jedi, which is kind of a really interesting time in the galaxy. There's a lot of strife. There's, obviously there's this big galactic war going on. The Empire, who basically represent the law, are so focused on the rebellion that it's really a perfect opportunity for the underworld and the criminal syndicates to sort of rise up and sort of take their piece because the law is distracted. And with that, when you have kind of a young rookie scoundrel like KVS in our story, it's a galaxy of opportunity for her to really make her way there.
I can always remember the day we flew to San Francisco and we visited Lucasfilm Games, and we were in this incredible office with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we pitched the idea for Star Wars Outlaws. And it was a scoundrel, very, very much a scoundrel story and experience for players. And everybody in the room on the Lucasfilm side turned towards Matt Martin.
No pressure.
No pressure. Where would this fit? Because obviously Star Wars is extremely rich, lots of periods that are apt for this kind of adventure. Matt closes his eyes, paused for a few seconds. There is this 1 year period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that's perfect. The galaxy is in chaos, the Empire is taking more and more power, and the syndicates are fighting it out. And I tried to play it cool. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah. But in my heart, it was singing, because this is the period of Star Wars that I grew up with, and it's my period of Star Wars. So this was perfect for me. Dream come true.
You're welcome.
I'm not gonna lie, as a writer, between Empire and Jedi, this is like I was pinching myself. And you kind of have to, what was so exciting is really the fact that there is so much going on in this time period that, you know, the comics have explored really well, but to do this on the screen where, you know, we've seen that story of the Empire versus the Rebellion, this sort of big galactic battle, but to look at it through the lens of the scoundrel as someone just on the ground, you know, someone like Kay Vess, who is a thief. She's got this thief duo thing going on with her companion Nyx, but she's just trying to survive, you know, make it through. And there's so much story to tell, you know, with the fact that this is a person entering the underworld, entering this world of syndicates. Again, I think Julian put it super well. This is a dream come true. Pinch me. List all of the phrases you could think of.
Matt, can you talk about how Massive pitched the game?
Yeah, I mean, like, as Julian said, they came up like right before the pandemic. It was, I think it was one of the last big meetings that I was in person. And they came in with the idea of an open world game, which I think collectively is something that we've been waiting for internally for a long time. I would say it's my personal favorite genre of game. I just love playing an open world, like being able to explore and get lost, and it's the thing that I've been waiting for. And when a team like Massive comes in with that sort of experience, it just feels like, oh, this is perfect, this is going to be the thing. And then when they brought in kind of the idea of doing it as a scoundrel game, it was everything that I think all of us had been waiting for. And so we just kind of sat back and like, this is it, we're going to do it.
All we have to do is build it now, which is not the easiest part. But the open world experience was really at the heart of the proposal. Being able to give players the agency to step into the world of Star Wars, to discover these locations, these characters at the rhythm that they're dictating and directing is really at the heart of the scoundrel experience as well, the freedom that we're looking for. So it was a fairly obvious proposition.
All right, let's get personal for a moment here, Julian and Navid. What's it like knowing that your story, your characters, and the moon you created, Tashara, are now part of the Star Wars galaxy?
No pressure. So when we first started, it was, you think you know Star Wars, but you don't really, unless you're Matt Martin, you don't really know Star Wars. There's a lot to learn, there's a lot to wrap your mind around. And just going back to the source and looking at some of the design principles and the philosophies that guided the creation of the original trilogy, really, really inspiring and made us all level up and grow as professionals. So honestly, being a game developer, I already think is one of the best jobs in the world, but doing that on Star Wars on top of it, incredible.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I you know, coming as well from an immigrant family where you're entering a new culture, you know, when I was a kid, Star Wars was like this unifying element, this universal language that my family just sort of absorbed and rallied around, and you know, we had all the Kenner toys. I was playing with the toys before seeing the movies. So I was making up stories with my brother right from the beginning, and to sort of fast forward to now, where just last week we were doing mocap with a certain person who speaks Huttese, and I had to take a moment for myself and say, wait a second, what am I doing here? This is amazing. But also, what's great about that is even to get to work with Lucasfilm Games is it's amazing, because we were trying to translate on the fly, and it was like, wait a second, let's get Lucasfilm in on this, let's talk about it. We're doing this huddle to make sure we get the Huttese right. So to be able to dive into those details as a storyteller, it's, again, it's amazing.
All right, well, so far from what we've seen, Star Wars Outlaws is shaping up to be an unforgettable adventure. And just as exciting as navigating the complex world of Star Wars Outlaws are our new Star Wars characters that make up our ultimate outlaw crew. I'm talking about Kay Vess, Nyx, and ND5. So let's talk more about them. Navid, tell us about the process of writing these characters and how actors that played all of these characters, help to bring them to life?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really wanted to look at the tone of the original films and try and capture that in the characters from a scoundrel perspective. And honestly, it was very organic, naturally moving into the characters of Kay, Nyx, and ND5, but it only will take you so far as a story team. Once it gets to casting, I can't tell you the amount of tapes we looked at. There were literally hundreds and hundreds of tapes. But what was really fun was the moment you're in casting and you tell an actor, oh, by the way, this is Star Wars and it's not this pirate game that is talking about doubloons. Their face, they either get super excited or they get this look of terror. You know, how am I going to do this? Weirdly, again, I have to admit it becomes a little bit of a test as well to see if they're going to be able to handle that pressure. And one of my favorite moments, though, speaking of Kay and ND5, is we had landed on the casting of ND5 with Jay Rincon quite early, and we decided, we're going to do chemistry leads. And if you've ever seen a chemistry lead, I recommend you look them up. They're super fun. But within 10 seconds if it's clicking, right? And we had Jay there, and when Umberly joined the call, she didn't even know he was ND5, and they already started tearing each other apart and poking at each other. And we just looked at ourselves and we're like, hang on a second, this is it. Like, this is the moment. We have to get Umberly on board. So just an amazing process.
Matt, can you talk about seeing those auditions and the mocap footage?
Yeah, I mean, it's so fun because when you're working on a project like this, you're developing the characters, you're seeing the scripts, at least probably a year before we start talking casting. So you really get an idea, like a really fully formed idea of what the character is like in your head. And then you start to see the auditions come through, and some of them, are great, but not quite what you had in mind. And then you have this kind of like, wait, am I wrong? Is that it? What was really cool was seeing Umberly's performance, because it was exactly what I had in mind. It was, when I was reading those words, it was exactly the way that she was performing them. And then getting to witness them all together in mocap, which is a really fascinating process because you have to really use your imagination. I mean, looking at this. And you still get to see it. You watch these characters come to life, and you just kind of know instantly, yeah, this is gonna work.
That's actually Nick's version 2, because Nick's version 1 was just a plush toy with a bunch of ping pong balls. And it was like, but Nick's version 2 is built by that puppeteer, right?
Yeah, it's Camille. Yeah, she's fantastic. And you would really forget that Nyx was a puppet, every time. And it was so natural, it's unbelievable. But actors would be walking around scratching Nyx's chin, and like whispering words to him, and Camille would be standing right there, and she would just react as Nyx. It's not part of the scene, but like, I think it was to make it feel better, but yeah, it was super fun.
So we see Umberly here. Navid, can you tell us what Umberly added to Kay's personality, and tell us more about Kay Bess?
Oh, I think, with Kay, we talked with Umberly about this a lot. We wanted to capture the look, the feel, and the intention of a character, a scoundrel, who is really not part of that bigger galactic battle, and someone who has really survived on their own, is a bit of a loner, and really only sees Nyx as their family. And what was amazing is, writers get a bit writerly. We can tend to overwrite from time to time. And when we went to actually shooting with Umberly, one of the biggest things that just became so apparent was the amount of heart she brought to the character. And she has this ability to go from kind of fast talking, thinking on her feet, hitting those kind of classic scoundrel lines, to switching to a more poignant, emotional heart. and basically caused me and the team to go back, scramble back, and be like, wait a second, let's pull a bunch of these lines, let's look at this again. And so it really allowed us to help shape the character, which is a dream when you're looking at someone to play the lead role in something like this.
All right, let's talk about Nyx now, because Nyx stole a lot of people's hearts. Look at that face. Look at Nyx. Stole my heart too. So can you tell us more about the Kay and Nyx duo, and more about Nyx and Nyx's personality and what Nyx does in this game? Navid.
Yeah, I think with Kay and Nyx, we really always talked about them as, sorry, it's very hard to focus with Nyx
Don't look at
staring
Nyx.
at
Don't look at
like
him.
with this goofy smile.
Lost in his
Yeah,
eyes.
like, oh, you know, what was I saying? Nyx. But we never talked about Kay in isolation. And that was very intentional. We always talked about Kay and Nyx together because Nyx really is the only family, like true family, that Kay has ever had. And so in a lot of ways, narratively, Nyx is both an extension and a reflection of Kay. So, you know, we used to say a lot about how whether Kay is going to, you know, go out into the galaxy and meet underworld figures, Nyx is that crack in her armor, that sort of vulnerability that shows that she might have a tough exterior, but you know, there's real heart there.
All right, and let's also talk about the actor who brought Nyx's voice to life.
Yes.
Matt?
Yeah, I think Star Wars fans will be familiar with D. Bradley Baker. So yeah, he obviously famous for Captain Rex, the Bad Batch, literally every other clone trooper in all of Star Wars animation, and more recently Nubs in Young Jedi Adventure. But he's no stranger to doing creature voices. He is incredibly well versed at that, and he does all of the sounds for Nyx, as well as turning on his Huttese as Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what's funny, when we're in the writer's room, whenever we're not sure what to do to the scene, we look at what is Nyx up to? What is Nyx doing? He can fix this. And I gotta say, hearing Dee do Nyx in the booth, it's doing that voice. It's like, where does it come from, honestly? And yeah, I wish he could do a Jabba voice message for me, but he didn't really say anything about that.
Coming back to the gameplay relationship between Kay and Nyx, Nyx is really an extension of Kay's powers. When Navid was saying that in terms of writing, we never considered them separate, that symbiotic relationship continues to the gameplay too. So when you're sneaking, you can use Nyx to distract. When you're fighting, you can use Nyx to claw out somebody's eyes. He's a very affectionate, loving companion, but he's also a feral beast when you let him loose on people.
You can press a button to claw out somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a special button. So we constantly thought of Kay and Nyx as a single entity in terms of gameplay too.
All right, so in addition to Kay and Nyx, we also have a droid as part of our Outlaw crew, ND5. So, Navid, tell us more about ND5's personality.
Oh my god, ND5 is so much fun to write for, and the team did just such a fantastic job with the character creation and his design. But what was really exciting about ND5 was we wanted to take a VX Commando droid who had fought in the Clone Wars. This is a veteran of the Clone Wars who, coming out of that, enters the underworld and, you know, gets super experienced in terms of navigating it and that kind of thing. But also, it was important to us that he carries this weight on him. Quite literally, there's a hunch to how ND5 moves, and we talked a lot about that with the actor, and you know, with the jacket as well, and you know, the scarring. So it was important to us that this is a droid of few words. You know, this is a droid that isn't looking to do any translations for Kay, right? This is a character that serves as a counterpoint to Kay, who is fresh and new to the underworld, and seeing the sparks fly there between them is a lot of fun.
Visual design-wise, one of the key things was taking something very simple, BX Droid, and communicating the heavy burden that they have on their shoulders with just a few simple things. The coat, the posture, the scar, everything came together, and as soon as we found the voice, Jay, it really, the puzzle fit. Everything was there for a really, really powerful character.
Matt, thoughts on 95?
I mean, when we first saw the design come through, Droid in a duster was pretty top notch. I don't think we had any notes. He's so perfect. You look at him and you instantly understand kind of what he's been through. I don't think any of us expected quite the reaction that it got when initially shown, but cool.
Yes, it was a great reaction. So now we've learned about the story and characters. Now let's take a closer look at how the open world was developed. Alright, from what we've seen from Star Wars Outlaws behind the scenes, crafting a galaxy of opportunity, in Star Wars Outlaws we'll explore beautiful, sprawling landscapes, while descending into the underworld and rubbing elbows with notorious crime syndicates to take on high-risk, high-reward missions. Each location, including Tatooine and Tashara, brings different adventures and unique risks. Julian, let's start at the beginning, with the decision to create an open world for Star Wars Outlaws, and the process you went through to include well-known planets, such as Tatooine, and new locations like Tashara.
So, open world is part of our DNA at Massive, and we really wanted to embrace that and to bring it to a Star Wars adventure. So, once we decided on the open world structure, what does that mean to the player? For me, it means freedom. It means the possibility to direct your own experience. You're driven by your needs as a character, but your choice will dictate what you're distracted by in terms of the views that you see, the events that are happening around you. So you're not stuck on a single limited path. It really is an open world and then open galaxy adventure. And that's super, super important to us to nail within the Scoundrel fantasy.
Matt, you want to add to that?
Yeah, the team, when they came to us, they came with some, a large list of worlds that they were interested in potentially exploring. There were some really deep cuts. It was clear that the team were fans and had done their research. But it was really fun to work with them to sort of craft which worlds would be ideal for Kay's adventure and really make sure that everything that we're creating is sort of in service of her big story. Really finding the worlds that are perfect for that scoundrel fantasy, like Tatooine, which I think, is probably the one that everybody would have expected, probably would have felt missing if we didn't do it, all the way to something like Tashara, which was built from the ground up to be, that perfect world for Kay to enter into the scoundrel lifestyle. And it's just great because players will be able to go wherever they want, make their choices, and it's also great for me because I get to review all of it, and it's so fun.
And it's interesting because when you first start to dream about where we can take players, where we can take Kay, your mind goes to all of those touch points that you've seen in the movies or in the TV shows or in the animation. But then Lucasfilm Games really encouraged us to go and create our own locations. And Tashara was really born out of that challenge. It was, how would Massive build an open world hive of scum and villainy where you have corrupt empire, you have the syndicate, and you have the player who is a rookie thief who has to pretend to be much more an outlaw, in a sense, to be able to survive and thrive.
Navid, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm definitely biased, but I feel like open world narrative is some of the most difficult narrative. The bags under my eyes will attest to that. Difficult narrative to produce, but what we've tried to do, and I think I'm really excited about it, is that really we treat Kay's story as lighthouses of her journey. And when you go to a planet like Tashara, when she enters Tashara, yes, there's those key beats that we want players to enjoy and invest in and hit. But if you decide, if you're at the canteen and I'm talking to some smuggler and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a contract, I'm gonna hop on this speeder, I know I have an accent right now, but take off and look for some amberine amulet or something like that, the story will react to that. It'll allow for that. And I think that's what's so important. What's great about this team is that everything is seen and produced through the lens of character. We want our open worlds to really reflect Kay's journey and the experience of someone stepping into the Star Wars galaxy for the first time.
Julian, let's talk about some of the beloved iconic locations we see in Star Wars Outlaws.
I mean, if you close your eyes and I give people the choice of going anywhere in Tatooine, where's the first location you go? Mos Eisley. And specifically one watering hole in Mos Eisley. And the opportunity of a video game, an open world video game like this, is that you can see all the nooks and crannies. You can see all the things that are informed by the research that Lucasfilm Archives has that we've recreated for you. And this concept of virtual tourism is very important to us too. So if you've ever wondered, the distance from the moisture farms to Mos Eisley, we have an experience for you.
That's great. All right, so let's talk about the syndicates. Why did you decide to put syndicates, including the Hutts, in Kay's story? And can we expect to encounter any new syndicates? Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the syndicates and the underworld in general have been a part of Star Wars storytelling since the very beginning, since A New Hope in 1977, but it's always been sort of a background layer. Telling a scoundrel story really allows us to take the underworld and the syndicates and kind of rise it to the top and really focus on them. So obviously with Jabba's Palace here, we will get to spend some time with Jabba himself, maybe run some missions for him, and the Hutt cartel in general. In addition to that, we will have some time with the Pikes. Pikes were originally created by George Lucas, first seen in Star Wars The Clone Wars, but more recently explored pretty heavily in the Book of Boba Fett series. And we also have a new syndicate called the Ashiga Clan, who are based on Kajini.
Yeah, and I think with the syndicates, what we were really excited about and drawn to is the idea that Kay has to navigate them and her reputation with them, right? And so it creates this really interesting push-pull system for players where if you decide to go do some jobs for Jabba and you pull them off, you head into space, you pull off a contract, you're going to get the benefits of that. You might get new locations, you might get a higher reputation. But if you decide, I'm going to betray Jabba and I'm going to go help out the Ashiga clan, well, your reputation is going to drop. And much like Jabba would do in real life, I imagine, he's going to send hunters after you. So that is something that I think players are going to have a lot of fun just messing around with.
So don't betray Jabba.
Yeah, that's the lesson. I never quite learned. So.
All right, you keep saying Ashiga clan, but I need to know more. Give me more details about this new syndicate.
Yeah, Ashiga clan is based on in Kajimi. The idea there is really to have a clan, a cartel, a criminal organization that is of a hive mind. So the Ashiga, you might recognize, are based on the Melito species, and the idea there is they do everything in service of the hive. They're amoral. They're not there to be political and make political decisions or anything like that. Everything goes into the service of the hive, and it allowed us to create this contrast with some of the other potentially unfamiliar syndicates that Matt mentioned and that you might come across.
And the Ashiga are based on Kajini, as we said. Kajini was kind of briefly glanced in The Rise of Skywalker, and it was very clear from the design of that world that there's a lot of rich history. It's a really interesting place to be. So being able to sort of build that and really get to explore it, and then create a new syndicate to live on that world was a really exciting opportunity for us.
And I mean, visually, they're very different from the other syndicates that you'll be facing off, but also in terms of gameplay. So it's very important for us to design each syndicate to have a distinct profile for the player. And the Yoshida clan are very, very strong at detecting people who are trying to sneak around. Their hearing is highly attuned, and they're very, very vicious. Very fast, very vicious. Huge contrast with some of the other syndicates that you'll be tandem with.
All right, let's get into the underworld that our Outlaw trio will get wrapped up in. Navid?
Yeah, I mean, one of the it's amazing to even finally be able to talk about this. But the fact that you, as Kay, are navigating the underworld, when we were looking at her journey and the planets and the moon, Tashara, we start to realize, we wanted certain syndicates to have more favor on certain planets or have more influence on certain planets. And that in itself was a puzzle that we had a lot of fun putting together. For example, on Tashara, the Pikes worked out an arrangement with the Imperials within sort of Miragana and allows them to get away with certain things where the Empire can look away. And that's something that Kay's going to have to navigate and experience on Tashara, but when she goes to Kajimi, Ashida are fully in control. So you're going to have all those levers to push and pull as Kay.
All right, well, let's focus on Tashara, the new moon created by Ubisoft. So Julian, why did you decide to create a new location, and what elements of Tashara make it important for Kay's journey?
I think when we go back to the origin point of the project, we had all of these desires, these wishes to go to really iconic locations, recent discoveries, but also to add something new. And we've become more and more excited by the potential of bringing something to Star Wars, to the galaxy. And Tashara really represents a lot of our learnings on how Star Wars was built. Going back to these original design principles, the familiar but fresh, and looking at what we could create that was really adapted to the scoundrel lifestyle, to the opportunities for an outlaw around those ideas. So first thing, of course, we wanted a real world inspiration for the biome. And the biome that we chose was savanna, an African savanna. And we went to Tanzania, we did some sound recording, we did a lot of research there. And to bring the alien touch, we added this huge wind, these weather events that are very powerful. We added huge rocks made out of amberine, a translucent substance that reflects light and conducts light. We added a city sandwiched in the middle of a mountain that is incredible to explore and is really the home of the biggest cantina that we created on Tashara. So all of these elements fit together and created something that looks familiar, but is absolutely fresh and is incredible to explore, both on foot and on your vehicles.
Yeah, I think as well, when we spoke about Tashara, we always spoke about it in terms of contrasts. And I think that the idea that you are going to have this bustling, thriving, syndicate city, Miragana, where you can go in, like I said, to a cantina, and you'll see all sorts of folks looking to pull off some illegal work that you can nab, or you can just hop on your speeder and head into the open world and across the savannah to explore and experience the sort of local culture there. And I think really, when you're making an open world game, it comes in sort of slices. You want to break down all the different layers from the demographics, the politics, the look and feel of the people there, the characters you're going to run into, and just an incredible amount of research that the team did and worked closely with Lucasfilm games.
Yeah, and Matt, what was Lucasfilm's role in creating Tashara?
Yeah, I mean, in general, we're really in lockstep with Massive. Week to week, our teams are kind of always talking, and creating Tashara specifically, you know, we were able to kind of look at it a little bit different than we would look at it for a movie or a TV show, because unlike those other mediums where you really just need to develop, you know, a little corner of a location for what is needed on screen, in a game like an open world game, players can go wherever they want. They can turn any corner that you maybe weren't planning on it. So we really did have to think of it from the ground up, and you know, every little lore detail that you can imagine. And there's so many fun things to explore. And it, you know, the way we were thinking about it, it's more than just sort of the picturesque scenery of the savannah. It's kind of a home of hideouts and bandits and pirates and things like that. And it's also kind of ruled by the Imperials, but they work hand in hand with the Empire, or with the syndicates.
All right, and these locations look fantastic, but I want to know how Kay's getting around the galaxy. So, Matt, why is piloting your own ship an important part of the Scoundrel fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's wanted to have their own Millennium Falcon, their own ship that they can live in and they can get around in. And it's so central to the Scoundrel fantasy. So when we decided to create this game, it was obvious that we had to make a cool ship that can be Kay's ship, which is the Trailblazer.
Yes, and Navid, want to add to that?
Yeah, I think with the Trailblazer, what is super fun is like this is a ship that you're going to be able to do dogfights in. There's going to be tons of gameplay in terms of even just exploring space as well. But like you said, a Scoundrel's home is always the ship. So it's also a place that, you know, you can walk around in and talk to the different characters. Bug ND5 about his jacket, or you know what I mean? And it's also one of those things that I'm really excited for players to try and discover the hidden secrets within the Trailblazer. This is a ship that goes back to the Republic era, and so there's a lot of fun details that are there for players to find.
Yeah, just one last thing. This is not a ship that Kay acquires legally either. This is something that she borrows permanently. So there's a lot of secrets there.
So she didn't lease it?
No.
Borrows permanently, love it. All right, Julian, tell us about Kay's speeder and what inspired the design for that.
So Kay's speeder, if you think about Star Wars, lots of speeders, lots of great land vehicles, all with different inspiration. Hot rods, choppers, different types of cars and real-world vehicles. For us, it was a particular motocross, Swedish-designed motocross bike that we had to be Swedish. Massive are located in Sweden, so we stayed very, very focused on our own vehicles. And we started reducing it, making it a simpler design, more and more and more. And we got to this compact shape, and we added a few details, a seat for Nix in the back, a auto-piloting system, so it comes back to you if you call it. Lots of little details that bring it to life and give it a personality. In terms of the gameplay feel, the inspiration is also motocross. So it grows your access in these huge open world environments, because walking from one point to another, the moisture farms to Mos Eisley, is going to take a long time. But this speeder cuts that down and makes the travel fun. It's thrilling to be able to pull off some tricks and stunts on this speeder.
What I love is that the worlds were also built with that in mind. So you will be driving around in your speeder, just come upon something that works very conveniently as a ramp, and you get to do little moves.
And if you want to check out Kay's speeder, you can in real life right downstairs in Hall A in the gaming area at the Star Wars Outlaws booth.
Yeah, that's super cool.
It's very cool. Y'all did that today and you were running behind Julian. It was great.
Be very gentle with it. I'm taking it home. So
You think he's joking?
I'm not joking.
Dibs on the neon sign. Just kidding. Anyway, before we go, one final question for all of you. What are you most excited for Star Wars fans to take away from playing Star Wars Outlaws? Navid?
Ooh, big question. I think for me, it's really Kay's journey. Just having a character, I always like to say that this is really not the story of the Empire or the Rebellion. This is the story of an outlaw, through and through. And to be with that character and see her change over the course of the game and the journey she goes through, I'm excited about that. I just realized I wish I could invite all of you to the writer's room, because I feel like the debates we would have, you would appreciate. Maybe next time.
For me, I think it's the open world. It's probably no secret to most people that Star Wars is my favorite fictional world, my favorite franchise, for so many reasons. And just the ability to step into that world and do whatever I want and go wherever I want is exactly the sort of experience that I've been hoping for. So I think I'm just excited for players to be able to just step into it and go wander off and do their thing as Kay.
Julian.
So, there are a couple of surprises that I don't want to spoil, but
You can do it here. It's a safe space.
No one's gonna tell.
We keep secrets here. We keep
We're all
secrets.
best friends now.
slow down. So,
Look at that peer pressure.
You set yourself up for that.
there is a particular predator on Tushara, which is mind-blowingly cool. So if you have a fear of frogs, this might not be the game for you. No spoilers.
Wait, I think you have a fear of frogs based on that reaction.
Oh, okay, it's okay. It's very rare. It can be okay. The second thing is food is incredibly important to the world of Star Wars. And if you enjoy food and discovering alien concoctions, this is going to be a very interesting experience for you.
Well, I love frogs and I love food, so I'm very excited. Are you all excited to play this game? Alright, well thank you all for being here. And to stay up to date on all things Star Wars Outlaws, be sure to check out StarWarsOutlaws.com. And also join our community on Discord. And of course, stop by the Star Wars Outlaws booth right downstairs in Hall A in the gaming area. Let's all give a round of applause to Julian, Matt, and Navid. Thank you so much for being here. Can we bring the house lights up so we can take a picture with the crowd?
Oh.